Joe Mullings from 160 Studios, and with me today is a friend and somebody I've admired watching him navigate first on the field, courageous move into the HealthTech digital world, and that would be Joe DeVivo. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Joe, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Always good to see you. So first of all, congratulations on InTouch and Teladoc and making that happen. It was inevitable in my opinion, but it was just a great move for the healthcare and the patients in general.
Well, thank you. It's been an incredible ride. I've been in the medical device industry almost just about 25 years, and then have leapt over onto healthcare IT, and wasn't a part of the plan. But I certainly would have been blessed to know someone who had a great vision and helped me see that vision. And I placed my bets on him, and it's paid off.
So Joe, you've been a little humble. Today, virtual is a no-brainer. Today, patient engagement from a distance is a no-brainer. But that's only because in the last 7 months, it's been forced upon us. And now we've got, certainly InTouch, we've got Avail, we've got Proximie, we've got these other, and there's more than enough room for all these players in different aspects of that virtual engagement, because it's all not the same engagement, and maybe you can help with that as well.
Sure.
But you saw it early. You came up out of Mr. Hirsch's camp, which to me I think was one of the best training camps of all time, the crucible of it, and have, gosh, Joe, how many companies have you transacted now?
Oh gosh, I haven't added them up. It's been a bit. It's been a lot.
Yeah. So what did you see? What did you see when you first, especially, had InTouch and then Teladoc, and then made a move as a career med tech guy into healthcare IT?
Well, I used to be with Computer Motion, which is the first surgical robotic company, and not many people even know about this, but probably the most complex and most expensive surgical procedure happened on September 7th, 2001. It's called the Lindbergh Procedure, and it was done by bringing Professor Marescu from IRCAD in Strasbourg, France, to New York City. We had to have the FDA approve this procedure in 2001, and also in France. And the Prime Minister in France at the time gave us access to a dedicated underwater cable where we took a robot, we broke you have a master and a slave, or you have the console and the robotic arms, and they're separated by 10 or 20 feet of cable. We replaced the 20 feet of cable with 4,000 miles of cable. And Professor Marescu and also Michel Gagne took the gallbladder out of a patient 4,000 miles away in 43 minutes. And that was always very formative for me, and it went on in my career. And unfortunately, it was 4 days before September 11th. And the team was on the set of Good Morning America when the towers came down. So no one's really heard of this and understood the magnitude of this procedure, given the horrible events that followed. But the concept, if you look at any industry where labor is a very high percentage of cost, restaurant industry, service industry, there tends to be a lot of inefficiencies, and there's a lot of opportunity to improve. Sorry about that, Joe.
I love live TV.
We're all at home,
best.
Not at the office. So in healthcare, labor is a tremendous cost, right? So you have all these doctors, but if you lose any of their time, like if you lose an hour a day, you never get it back. Mm-hmm. It's like a power grid, and so municipalities can't store the power; they'll move it to another location. And so when I got to learn about InTouch and learn to understand how they can leverage the expertise of a physician to remotely provide value, it just, when I was interviewing, I had an opportunity to run a division of a very large organization that you all know. And I was thinking about doing that, or thinking about, going into this field. And I just felt that there had to be a different way. There had to be a different way to digitize healthcare. There had to be a different way And this was the first time that I saw a technology that right day one, you see the cost benefits. There's all these different, hips and knees and catheters and all the stuff that, has this different widget and it does something better, and you can identify how the cost can come down. But to see how you can take so much cost out, you can improve the outcomes of the patients remotely. You can allow them to have literally world-class care wherever they live. You can do so in a manner that improves the quality of care for them. That the light just came off, because our healthcare, every year you see the cost of healthcare going up. It's just a straight line. You can calculate it, and it's just going up and up and up and up. And this is the first time I actually felt that a technology can bend the cost curve and bend it in a way where it doesn't bend back. When you look at the cost per patient, the ability to serve, the ability to improve their quality of life, the ability to intervene when they're ready for you to intervene, not to intervene just because it's convenient in your appointment. I really thought that would change healthcare. And I felt that because of how good InTouch was, it was worth making the investment.
Yeah. So now that you're there, Teladoc Health, you're president of the hospitals and health systems. Where does this go? So you were a first mover. InTouch was a first mover and got engaged with one of the giants in the space. But now how do we take that and scale it? Where does the infrastructure, where's the supply chain, where's the distribution network? We know the node to node works. So where is the next mountain? Because they always appear in front of us. The tech is always there, but right. We are taking a tech that is forward facing, and we're trying to apply it in a sort of retrospective system. And how do we crack that as quick as possible?
Well, it's amazing with what's happened with this pandemic, because some of the largest barriers just fell. Mm-hmm. The whole telehealth industry has had to operate outside of having a reimbursement code. So you've had to work within the existing codes and try to find a way to identify that you can have cost savings. And the ones that I just rattled off are real. And even without having a code for the consultation, you can increase the catchment area of a hospital, you can reduce the cost to serve of a patient. And on its face, without a code, we were able to make those use cases work. But there's many others where you just need to have a code. So what happened in March was, statewide credentialing, halted or suspended, or, the ability to now have reimbursement for a virtual visit, the same as an in-person visit, bam, came down. And then one that needs to go back up is the reduction of the HIPAA compliance as a requirement for video conferencing. That'll go back up. But all the big barriers came down. Mm-hmm. And no one was ready. No one was ready for it. And we've seen, if you look at anyone who got into virtual, you'll see the significant adoption. And now you're seeing a leveling off, because people are going back into the doctor's offices. And people have run into like consumer video conferencing to meet this short-term demand, because their practices really depended on it. But what's happening now are people are saying, okay, the genie is out of the bottle. We're not going to get people, if another health system, if another provider, if any constituent in healthcare is providing a virtual option, and I'm not providing a virtual option, mm-hmm. that will now turn into an existential competitive disadvantage. Yeah. So this is here now, and it's not going away. And the entire market today is figuring out, okay, well, how are we going to now truly embed this in our workflow? Because this isn't just about you and I communicating over this media. This is about, how do I have the practice of medicine? How do I manage the workflow? Like if a doctor is going to use a basic platform like this, well, and I think we even talked about this in the past, they have to have someone in their office call a patient saying, hey, are you ready for your video visit? Mm-hmm. And then they have to call the patient and say, okay, you're going to click this link and then the doctor will join you. And then they call the doctor and say, okay, they're now ready, because nothing ever happens at 2:00. Mm-hmm. It's like 2:13 or 2:20, because there's always a delay between it. So the machinations of getting ready for the consult. And then after the physician has the consult, how do you know they had the consult? Where's your record? Where's your proof? Where's your documentation? How does it link into your documentation system? And how does it link into your overall, revenue cycle management reimbursement system? So now all of healthcare is thinking not about whether or not to do virtual care, and the major barriers have come down. It's how to do it and how to put it into the workflow. Because some people have overdone it. Virtual care is not going to take over healthcare. It's just going to become healthcare because there's certain steps along the pathway that the patient engaged the health system that are not necessary to do in person. If I'm going to put a knee in, it's not about whether or not you're going to put a knee in virtually. You're never going to put a knee in virtually, but you might, your intake module might be virtual, your workup might be virtual, your post-op visit might be virtual because it's just going to be convenient. And so everyone today is thinking about those workflows. And if I was a CEO in the medtech industry today, I'd really be thinking about this. And I'd be thinking about what does it mean? Because I think the concept of medtech where I have a product, I put it in a box, I put a price on it, I have a salesperson, I create training, I get a GPO contract, and I sell it. I think that is now maybe 20-30% of the equation, and there's going to have to be a whole contemplation of changes in business practices, behaviors, and how to use data in order to stay ahead of where this market's going.
Does that occur in the current generation, Joe? So if we take it, you and I are I'm in my 50s, late 50s. We're in our 50s, and docs and the healthcare system has got its predictability down, and having those transition moments, which is, as you just pointed out earlier, that COVID had provided, it kicked the door open. But now what we've got to do is we've got to take this tech tool and we've got to look at every single process and see where we can leverage it. And then does this introduce new workflow and or new skills within healthcare where maybe it's not a physician sitting in front of that patient any longer. Maybe there's a new category in pre and post on the rehab side. So right. Is that what's next for us potentially as well?
Well, there's another variable here that has to be a part of the dialogue. And it's kind of been this, groundswell that's been happening under our feet that we're aware of, but we don't truly understand its impact. And that's been the advent of the electronic health records. Mm-hmm. So our customers, okay, I'm selling a device, I'm a device company CEO. My customer has been digitizing their records over the last decade. They know now what patient is being used when my device is being used. And they have a lot of different data, a lot of different pieces of data around that, and it's imperfect. And they're looking very much in trying to, everyone with AI and machine learning, you can have the best AI script in the world, but if you don't have a large data set, you're not going to get anywhere. But there's massive amount of, of disaggregated health data that exists out there now. And if I'm a device CEO today, I'm trying to figure out how does it impact my business. I don't want to be commoditized, and I don't want someone else to control the narrative. So I have to find a way to think through every step of the value chain and how I can extract digital information. And it's not just about the clinical outcome, it's about what happens to the patient afterwards and the variables beforehand. So I'd be putting electronics into my devices. I'd be categorizing activities prior to a procedure. I'd be categorizing activities and trying to create service-oriented products that help potentially follow the device post-operatively. And, potentially, find ways where I can extract what is that true experience. Mm-hmm. Because this data will be used against the medical device industry, and it'll be used against them in a very negative way. If they don't control it, because it could be manipulated. So I'd be looking at every single way I can extract data, every single way that my product affected a patient pre and post-op. I'd look at the variables that exist that are not just procedural or the procedure itself. I'd look for, and even in demographics of patients, et cetera, and try to control the narrative. Because it could be the most powerful thing you have in getting, there's a reason why there's this, we talk about this valley of death between the FDA approval and the reimbursement. Mm-hmm. It's because they're both looking at two different things. We're talking about safety and efficacy from FDA, and then CMS is looking for practical value. Mm-hmm. Are you really increasing costs? Are you really decreasing costs? And so there's a lot of that real-time data sitting in the electronic health records. And I really want to find ways to command that so I can control the narrative, get reimbursement faster, and show that everything that my company is doing is creating value in the healthcare system.
And I'm tracking all that, and I agree 100% with that. Now, I'm coming up with a medical device. I'm a $3 million friends and family angel money sitting there.
Yep.
And I've got to connect this thing somehow to the ecosystem, because if I sit out there as only a device in a disconnected world, what does that mean for me moving forward? So do you see more of these partnerships occurring? You know, I've gone on the record to say that I think within the next 5 years, it will be either Amazon or somebody like that. It could be Samsung or IBM as one of the big 5 medtech companies. Behind you is Teladoc, right? Were they even on a radar screen? And is Teladoc one of the big 4 players, one of the big 5 players? Because none of the large strategics right now have a program in place that can accommodate a cyber cloud platform with any level of competency. So is there going to be a new player, and it could be Teladoc, stepping into that as the person who connects and has this open architecture to provide that pre, in, and post value chain on a 20% GDP of our country?
Well, there certainly will be, but that player who will ultimately be successful, in my view, will need to play by the FDA's rules, and will need to have compliance and quality there. It can't just be some tech device that says I can measure a heartbeat in order to get into it. And I applaud Apple for getting FDA approval for the Apple Watch. Mm-hmm. And so, and typically that's where you see the line of, the line between healthcare and IT. And I've always said this, and I've said this with you before, where's the line where, health IT ends and healthcare begins? We can't, just because we're in a digital environment, the quality and well-being of the patient is still as important as it is if you touch them with a piece of plastic, mm-hmm. or you touch them with a piece of metal, mm-hmm. Or you put a catheter in them. There have to be quality standards. And so we can't just let big tech come into the environment and not have the consequence and not have the responsibility to deliver a quality product. Mm. And that is where I think we have to draw the line. That's where I'm trying to have the AdvaMed folks focus on building digital into the whole platform and ensuring that as big tech comes into this, we're monitored, we're traceable. We know if there's patient harm. Just because it's digital doesn't mean there's not patient harm. Give me a blood pressure monitor that gives me the wrong blood pressure, or give me something that tells the patient something else. That patient's gonna maybe take the drug the wrong way or think that they're in a different place and they're gonna have a risk. And I think that's the next big reckoning in digital. Cyber was the reckoning of internet maybe, or security was the big reckoning that people were calling for 5 years ago, and look what's happening today. I'm telling you, I've been there, I see it. Patients are being harmed, and the FDA is aware of it, and the FCC, and everyone is looking at, okay, if this thing really does take off, how are we going to regulate this in a manner that's safe? And so, yes, big tech or someone new could do it, or an existing incumbent who knows how to do it can get there. It'll be a newer entity, but in my view, it will maintain those type of digital standards. Those type of quality standards.
That's fascinating, because we all right now, and you just hit something on me, we are living our lives being driven by algorithms. I go on Waze and it tells me where to go, even though I know that's not the way I want to go. When I go to Amazon, it already puts up the top 4 things it wants me to see first based upon my choices. So what you're talking about here on a very basic level is if that digital sort of flag tells me to do something and it's not a human being who has judgment and maybe acuity around a specific situation, but it says my BP is 90/60, it's kind of low, take this pill or fire this stimulator, suddenly we're operating in an algorithm.
That's it. Well, and again, now you better live by the safety and the efficacy of what you just did. Just because it's digital, just because it's a piece of software, doesn't mean you don't harm the patient.
Correct.
And that, for me, is crucial. And I'm seeing this race of big tech in the healthcare, and I'm seeing places where it's gone too far. And I'm not trying to say, oh my gosh, don't go do it. I'm just, as this goes in a $4 trillion, healthcare economy in the U.S., and it's infiltrating a lot of different steps. I think we just have to ensure that we're providing healthcare, and that's all. And we can do it in the home. We can have devices that stream and give data. We can have, it just has to be secure. It can't be hacked. It's got to be, completely encrypted, and it has to do what it says it does. And just like all the, other device companies have all kinds of consequence when they say they do something and don't do it, or someone's harmed by their devices. Digital companies have to be held to the same standard to the extent that the same risk exists. And I think that's the thing that, I see that concerns me. And will be an issue in the future, mark my words.
Yeah, God, sage words right there from Mr. DeVivo, who has been on as mechanical as a business as you can be in the surgical stapling business, and now on the leading edge of digital. All right, so we're going into AdvaMed. What are you going to keep your eyes open for over these next week or two in the conference and in the technologies and in the conversations?
It's so exciting. You've created a great communications platform, yourself, Joe. And I think what's exciting about this next AdvaMed is I had the pleasure of serving as the program chair this year. Yeah. And right in the middle of developing the programs, COVID hit. And so we've had to pivot and make sure that we not only have programming on lessons learned on COVID, but we also have the ability to do a successful virtual conference. And that's a big news coming into this medtech conference. And so I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure that the agenda is relevant to the time at the moment. And I also think that this conference has the ability to be bigger than anyone had been before. We have our own company conference, and we've had a couple hundred people, 300 people live. We bring out to California. This year we had, 3,600 people register because it was online. And now we're seeing AdvaMed go through the roof because people from all over the world can be a part of this content, be a part of this conversation. Healthcare and digital, this is all global. We're all in the same boat. And AdvaMed is just the central clearinghouse of policy, of technology, of where things are going, what are the best vendors that are supporting us, and then who are all of the decision makers. I mean, it's the Davos of healthcare. It's it. And I think the tent just got so much bigger because it's virtual. It won't be compromised. It'll be enhanced. And there will not be an event in the future that is just a brick and mortar analog event. We've learned now how to reach people. And again, what you do and your platform reaches so many people, and it's done so well. And we've learned that we can exchange information from afar. So we need that personal connection. We need the ability to be there if we can. That's always a priority. But you shouldn't miss out because you can't physically be there. And we're going to teach ourselves now how to do an unbelievable job with making that work. And that will now become, if you cannot come to the conference next year, you'll be able to be there virtual and be a part of some of it virtually, live. So it's an exciting time. I'm very proud of the entire team. That the staff at AdvaMed is unbelievable. Everything they do well, and the event staff is no less.
Yeah, the lineup's amazing. The last 2 days we've had, I think, 9 or 10 guests on. We're super pumped to get this out, to share it as early in the conference as possible, and they're lucky to have you as the chair. Well, my friend, as always, I enjoy these conversations. They make my brain stretch. It's like chewing a steak right now, and I love it.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on and you being interested in this topic. And things are moving fast, and I'm happy to join in the future. But I appreciate all the work you do to get the message out because people are listening.
Appreciate it, Joe. You be well out there, and I will chat with you soon. Have a great week at AdvaMed.
You too. Take care.
Be well. This is Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Take care.